Yo, what's going on YouTube? Kronos here, and welcome back to another PSO2 video. So today's video is going to be talking about my thoughts on Bouncer now that we have the Retem update. But before we jump into that, guys, if you're new to the channel, my name's Chrono. I do content over here, primarily covering PSO2 and sometimes other games on the side. If you want to keep up with my content, make sure to subscribe as we work our way towards that 10K mark. But enough with the shilling, let's go ahead and jump into this. So it's been, I feel like it's a bit of a meme, but it's become a thing that everyone always stops to ask me about Bouncer. Everyone loves that everyone knows that I'm a huge fan of soaring blades. I love dual wielding. It's kind of just, it's weird to say it's my thing. Like, who doesn't love holding two swords in their hands or having two daggers? Like, it just feels powerful. It feels awesome. I love it. It's one of those things that if I can deal with a system in a game, and I can dual wield and I can customize a character, in most situations I'll probably deal with most of those systems. There's some exceptions here and there, but in most cases I'll deal with the systems themselves. And to be perfectly honest, Bouncer is no exception to the rule. I dealt with Bouncer all the way through base PSO2. I'm dealing with it currently in NGS at the moment, where I don't think personally Soaring Blades is in the best of places, and I'll explain a bit more why. Yeah, I wanted to give you guys my thoughts, like just kind of the raw, how I feel about the weapon itself, looking at some of its values and how it plays now that I've gotten more time with it. I've gotten a really strong weapon for it that actually is going to be a bit stronger in a little bit depending upon what I decide to do. But yeah, let's just go ahead and jump into it. Enough exposition. So for those of you guys who are only here for the beginning, and I don't want to make you wait all the way to the end of the video itself, we'll jump into it fairly quickly. I am not currently happy with the way Soaring Blades plays at the moment in NGS. Damage aside, its actual playstyle is not fun to get its optimal damage. So let's talk a little bit more about that. Now, even as I talk about this, I actually have on my screen the adjustments they have for, or that they made for the level 35 update, as well as the frame data for all of the PAs updated and how they are looking as far as damage is concerned. Now, I'm going to be very clear about this from the very beginning of this. And I know it sounds very serious, but I do take this to heart. It is very important to me when I talk about these sorts of things, because people do misunderstand what I mean in a lot of situations when I talk about some of this stuff. I am not concerned about Soaring Blade's overall damage. Yes, I do like doing a lot of damage. Yes, doing high amounts of damage is very fun. Yes, it feels bad not doing high amounts of damage. What feels worse is feeling clunky to do high amounts of damage. In my opinion, it doesn't matter how much damage you deal. If it's not fun to play, it's just not fun at all. So I'm not going to totally shit on Soaring Blades. Let's talk about the good stuff that they added. It's kind of weird, but like the one major thing they added that I really wanted to see was that when now stepping an ability in midair, if you counterattack, you no longer lose height. Similar to the way that, what's the weapon I'm thinking about? Double Saber for Fighter. Whenever you step counter something midair, you don't lose height continuously. You lose height for the step, which is normal because you basically lose regular step height. However, when you do the counter attack, you maintain your height moving forward with the attack itself. So you have some pretty solid hang time, meaning that you're able to step counter midair and not fall to the ground and lose a bunch of damage. Along with that, they also increased its range, so now you can actually step counter further, which is fantastic. It's a great quality of life. I'm really happy to see it. The Photon Blast was also changed, so now that basically it was the actual ability, or the animation themselves showed blades coming out of your character, but the damage wasn't registering until the blades were a little further away from your character. Now it shows them, or the damage is registering when it's much closer to your character itself, meaning that you can land hits where you actually want to land them a bit easier. So again, great quality of life to see. Now let's talk about what changed with the PAs. Now, just to explain something, I'm going to use the word variant attack. Variant attack refers to whenever you press the PA more than once. Pressing it once gives you the normal PA that comes out. Pressing it a second time during the first set of the animation of the PA up to a certain point will give you its variant attack. So for Destructive Stork, basically it's the PA that you would normally use for AoE. They increase the range of the variant attack itself, which is great. They also increase the rate of variant attacks. They basically increase the number of hits for the attack itself, which is also good. Rampaging Harrier, or for those of you guys who played base PSO2, basically orchestral. They made it so you can move horizontally while doing the verse part of it, the non-variant attack first part of it. And they also increase the potency of the variant attack. Now, that's a good and a bad thing. It's good because we got more damage. It's now bad though because there is no reason to actually let your Rampaging Harrier rock all the way through to the Blade Rain because it does less damage of you basically doing Rampaging Harrier, waiting for you to hit the last or the 7th hit before the Blade Rain, and then pressing the variant attack. It doesn't cost you any extra PP, it just gives you a different attack that goes out, which is actually easier to land, and you don't have to worry about your Blade Rain missing. So overall, it gives almost no point in using the full attack of Rampaging Harrier. Essentially, you just get all the hits and all the slashes while you're able to move, and then when you hit with that X attack, the 7th hit, you then press it again to get the kind of cash out move where you just throw some blades out in front of you. Normally, in the past, you would use that if you knew your target was going to move, or you knew the Blade Rain wasn't going to land in a favorable spot. Now you use it every single time because it's the most amount of damage you can deal. Roaring Pheasant, which is our gap closer, essentially they have changed a couple of things here and there. They added an effect that keeps you from being launched or knocked back during the activation motion, which is great. So if you were trying to get close to a target, or even in some cases get away from one, you wouldn't be knocked back or knocked away. You had a little bit of super armor at the startup, essentially. And they also increased the range for the last step when not using its variant attack. So essentially, if you let Roaring Pheasant rock all the way through to the end, it has like a large slash at the end of it. They made that a larger slash, so it's a lot easier to land that big hit. Now, all in all, with those adjustments, a lot of the PAs did get better, which I'm really happy about. But the weird part is now Rampaging Harrier does feel better to use, but it doesn't feel balanced to use. Now, it's kind of a weird place to be in because I like the fact that Rampaging Harrier is stronger for the easier use of it, but from a balance standpoint, there's no reason for the Blade Rain to exist outside of maybe in certain situations where a weak spot is just above the target. And you would much rather allow, your Rampaging Harrier to play all the way out to the end. That way it hits that Blade Rain, as opposed to pressing the variant attack for it and throwing out those other blades where it won't hit a favorable spot. But realistically speaking, that almost never happens, at least not for me since I've been playing. So it just seems a bit off. I feel like it's something that does need to be balanced. I am a fan of risk reward. However, I'm also a fan of fun first, then balance after. I mentioned this actually with talking with a few friends, even talking about Braver, where it looks like they made a good choice with Braver because they didn't take what was just balanced and make it strong. They took what was fun and buffed it. A lot of Bravers were really upset the counter wasn't as strong, and they added a new skill that made the counter very good. They also, reduced some hit stop from the counter. It was a lot of good things that needed to happen. And while I don't agree from a balancing standpoint all the time, because you want to be able to use all of your skills, from a fun perspective, it's a lot more fun to use, and that is important in my opinion when we're looking at overall play. Because if you're playing a video games are supposed to be fun. And for all of you who just made the joke to yourselves that there's no fun in NGS, comment in the comments right down below. Your joke is lame, it's old, get new material. I want the ability to laugh at you. Thank you, we're moving on now. So, with all the things we talked about, what is my overall problem with Soaring Blades? Why did I say that, it's strong, but it's clunky? Well, we still have its weapon action, which, perfectly honest, I think is probably the most boring weapon action we have in the game to be. Like, if I'm being real, and this is putting into consideration things like, what is it? I can't think of the skill. Like, this is putting into perspective, just the grenades from rifle or launcher or anything like. I think honestly, it's one of the most boring weapon actions we have in the game. Realistically speaking, I feel like it should just be removed. If we're being perfectly honest, I feel like it needs to be removed. They should axe the weapon action and axe Fanatic Blade. Fanatic Blade is extremely boring. It's literally just kind of run around your target. Now, beforehand, I did say that I was really bored with Fanatic Blade because you don't really have the counterplay anymore of countering an attack and then continuing with Fanatic Blade anymore. Technically, you do. The trick to that actually is letting go of your weapon action about a half second before you need to step counter something. That way you're not in weapon action cooldown when you go to step counter it. So it is still doable. You are still able to step counter during Fanatic Blade, but it does still make Fanatic Blade very boring. And it adds a level of complexity that realistically does not need to exist. Now, as someone who likes to play a class to its fullest, even if it's difficult and sometimes even beyond my ability, it does still bring up the question, does a class always have to be ridiculously difficult to play? I think there does need to be a proper balance between difficulty and rewarding to just overall annoying. And in its current state, in my opinion, it's kind of annoying to play Soaring Blades to their best ability. I'm doing things like dash canceling to be able to weapon action to get damage in between my PAs. Things like memorizing the exact animation a PA ends on to be able to weapon action to get a weapon action damage between PAs as well. And you're thinking to yourself, that's not that big of a deal, but for someone who wants to maximize the amount of damage that they're dealing, it does matter, and it is a big deal to me personally, and other players who are trying to do the same thing, as well as other players who aren't doing that. They're losing that damage, and it's not fair to them to have to go to that crazy amount of extra work just to get something very small. If we're being perfectly honest, if I wanted Soaring Blades to play like extremely well, it's funny because the PAs I actually enjoy from Soaring Blades. Though Rampaging Harrier currently isn't balanced in my opinion, even if they left Rampaging Harrier how it is, my ideal setup for Soaring Blades would be to axe the weapon action completely, axe Fanatic Blade, and then literally just copy paste Etwell's weapon action from base PSO2 over into NGS for Bouncer at the moment. Yes, it would have to do a bit of balancing for counter damage and things of that sort. Yes, it would do some weird things to step counter. Basically, you would only go for step counter when you're not using a PA actively. It should only technically work when you have a PA going, basically the weapon action itself. The step weapon action should not be a thing. Don't make that a thing from Etwell, just leave it out. But then take Fanatic Blade and make it similar to a build-up skill, kind of like Jet Sweep Jolt is for jet boots. Just make it like the first half of Connect or something, or you can make it an interesting ability, make it look something different, who cares? But the way that it works, it should just be whenever you parry or deal damage, you build up this actual bar, and then you can cash it out for damage that is mostly invulnerable. I feel like that would make Bouncer play so much more fun. It would make Soaring Blades play so much better in my opinion, and it would be a lot easier in my opinion to balance. Didn't have to add any crazy buffs to it. It's just more about ease of play, ease of use, and overall fun. And that is what I'm looking for from Soaring Blades. I don't know that's what they're going to do. That's like my ideal situation. You know, realistically speaking, I was just hoping they would at least make it so you didn't drop all the way to the ground whenever you step countered, and they gave me that. So I'm gonna put it out in the ether. I'm curious to see what you guys think. Feel free to talk about in the comments below. I'd love to hear what your ideas for Bouncer. Again, like I mentioned, balance is important, but like less clunkiness is also important in my opinion. The class doesn't have to be clunky. Even if it's not as strong, numbers can always be tuned. People have always, you know, I had tons of people that brought up, you know, that, well, if you did this, it would be unbalanced. If you did that, it would be unbalanced. Like, just tune the number. Literally just tune the number. Just tune numbers back and forth. The most important thing about how a class should play, in my opinion, when you're looking at balance, is how does it feel to play? If it doesn't feel fun to play, then it shouldn't be designed that way. And that's the first thing you do. Then you tune the numbers to make it balanced and make it so everything doesn't feel terrible. Outside of that, I guess I should have to address the new skills that we got. Jet Boots just got all the blots, which you would think is boring, but is actually extremely powerful. I don't know who decided that Medjid should build on every single Jet Boot attack, but it does, and it's really, really strong. And then, of course, Soaring Blades got the block, which the block is only actually used, realistically speaking, for moments that you were animation locked in a PA. Outside of that, you're not paying any attention to it. In some situations, when I'm just doing outright damage to a target that's down, I actually press the block on purpose, because a cool thing that happens in a neat interaction is whenever you start a PA, it resets your weapon action cooldown to ensure that you're able to press your weapon action for a block during your PA. What I do is actually press it during the PA. That way I can see the exact moment a PA is over to be able to press weapon action again to get my damage in between my PAs. Then I start up the next PA and then press weapon action again while the PA is going to be able to see when the next moment is that I'll have the frame available to use my weapon action between PAs again. If that sounded strange and kind of insane to you to be able to optimize in that sort of way, it's because it is, and definitely should not be a thing. It shouldn't require that style of play to be able to be fully optimal. Again, I'm a fan of you should have to try really hard to do a lot of damage, but it shouldn't feel this clunky, and I don't think it's good. Well, again, Soaring Blade is my favorite weapon, so I'm super, super critical of it. I'd love to hear what you guys think about it in the comments below. I will be doing a video talking about all of the skill trees, and I will be showing all my skill trees that I plan on using. And, you know, of course, Bouncer will be included in all that. I'll probably have a separate link for just my Bouncer main class and subclass setups, because I know a lot of people are curious about that. People ask about my damage, all that other stuff all the time. So I figured I might as well set that aside for people. It's just going to be in the skill tree video, so we'll talk about it there. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching. Like if you enjoyed the video, subscribe if you want to keep up with more, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care. Peace out.